Buonasera, muy buenas tardes, good evening everybody. It's a great privilege for me to be here this evening and to welcome you all in the name of Marie Dennis, my co-president. This is part of the witness that we give as leaders of Pax Christi, to have a laywoman and a bishop as equal co-presidents working to build up the entire movement together. So as we gather this evening to recognize and honor the recipients of the 2017 Pax Christi International Peace Prize, I want to begin by calling to mind Don Samuel Ruiz, former bishop of the Diocese of San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas in Mexico. Bishop Ruiz lent his voice and support to hundreds of thousands of indigenous Maya people who were among Mexico's poorest and most marginalized communities. In an article written for The Independent, the reporter shares how Bishop Ruiz told him that when he became a bishop, the mandate given to him was to wean the indigenous Mayans away from their ancient ways and towards Catholicism, as well as breaking the rise of Protestantism. But instead, he said, it was they who ended up changing me. I'm reminded of this as I learned more about the recipients of this year's Peace Prize, indigenous movement ZODEVITE, and Mika's here. The indigenous movement of the Zoque believing people in defense of life and earth. They come from Chiapas in Mexico. The movement is formed by members of the Zoque community who have been non-violently resisting extractive activities and large-scale development projects in their territories in very inspiring non-violent ways, waging a non-violent campaign to stop and resist fracking, oil exploitation, and mining business in southern Mexico. They have been creative in applying a variety of tools such as demonstrations, awareness-raising campaigns with the communities, meetings with policymakers, and press work, demanding their rights to be respected by the government and companies, while doing it in such a difficult context for human rights defenders. Several of the members of ZODEVITE have arrest warrants against them or have been put in jail. Nevertheless, thanks to their courageous work in several cases, they have been able to resist extractive activities from taking place in their territories. Their work is inspiring not only for other indigenous communities, but for all of us, as it shows how active non-violence can bring about change, respect for the planetary boundaries and people in economic development, even under very challenging situations. Members of ZODEVITE, which stands for the Movimiento Indígena del Pueblo Creyente Zoque en Defensa de la Vida y de la Tierra, or the indigenous movement of the Zoque believing people in defense of life and the earth. They follow the principles of caring for Mother Earth, identified in Pope Francis's encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si, and they are inspired by the aforementioned Bishop Don Samuel Ruiz. Pope Francis highlights in one little section of Laudato Si the intimate connection between care for the environment and issues of justice, care for the poor, the orphan, and the stranger. In paragraph 71 of Laudato Si, he says, "The gift of the earth and its fruits belongs to everyone. Those who tilled and kept the land were obliged to share its fruits, especially with the poor, the widows, orphans, and the foreigners in their midst." He quotes Leviticus 19, "When you reap the harvest of your land, You shall not reap your field to its very border, neither shall you gather the gleanings after the harvest. And you shall not strip the vineyard bare, neither shall you gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. In this we hear the echoes of the great mystic Hildegard of Bingen. Everything in the heavens and on the earth and under the earth is penetrated with relatedness, with connectedness. Indeed, we must reverence everyone and everything in God's creation because it breathes the mystery of relationship, which is God. The peace activists and the indigenous movement of ZODEVITE, with Michias representing them, can be an inspiration to many, many around the world because in so many places the poor and the weak and the vulnerable earth are oppressed by the policies and the practices of the powerful ones who own and operate the extractives, industries, and all that goes with them. In South Africa, I began my ministry as a bishop in January 1991 in a diocese where the biggest platinum mines in the world are in operation. Platinum is used in the vehicle industry. Besides huge damage to Mother Earth, pollution of water resources, with massive mountains of rubble from the mines, will the land ever be restored by the mining companies after they have finished mining? Besides this, one very painful consequence in my area. The mines have resulted in a huge migration of desperately poor people, especially single women and single mothers, from rural parts of South Africa and from other countries of Africa, hoping to find a job around the mines. They end up in terrible shack settlements of zinc and wood next to the mines, in terrible poverty. The miners themselves are recruited from other parts of South Africa and from our neighboring countries like Lesotho, Mozambique, and Swaziland. The miners leave their wives and families behind in their countries and villages to come and work for many months on end at the mines. So, single women and mothers, and single men, the miners with money. The result? One of the highest infection rates of HIV/AIDS in South Africa and indeed in the world, in my diocese. Before the arrival of the life-saving drugs, I sat in the shacks with terribly poor women, so sick, dying, and one said to me one day, "Father, I have no hope. There is no hope for me." And she looked across at her dying baby. I could only hold that precious dying woman and assure her and them that my team of care workers and nurses would care for them and their baby with great love, and that they would never be alone. God and the care workers would care for them, and we did. And so they could die in peace and dignity. So just one terrible result of the extractive industry in the diocese where I minister, leaving thousands of orphans, widows, and dying men and women. That is a matter of justice, without which there cannot be peace in those very violent communities. Over the past weeks, there have been assassinations and murders of union members at the mines there. And I work with the mining companies to promote their responsibility for those affected by their mining operations. ZODEVITE is an inspiration to me to continue my journey with these little ones of God's earth, and indeed Mother Earth. In this regard, For the past 6 years, Pax Christi International has been shepherding a project in Latin America and the Caribbean focused on offering training to indigenous communities whose rights are threatened by extractive industries initiated by transnational corporations. At the heart of this training is the promotion of active nonviolence and proactive citizenship in response to the conflicts associated with the exploitation of land, culture, and natural resources. It is within the context of this effort that we came across the work that ZODEVITE was accomplishing in Chiapas in Mexico. 2 of Pax Christi's international member organizations, FREBA, the Centro de Derechos Humanos Fray Bartolomé de las Casas, and CIPAS, Servicio Internacional para la Paz, have accompanied ZODEVITE in organized non-violent resistant actions to halt hydrocarbons and resist mining projects in the Tecpatan municipality. This is the 29th anniversary of the Pax Christi International Peace Prize today. First given out in 1988 to Margarida Maria Alves, president of the Farm Workers Union in Brazil, who in 1983 gave her life in the struggle for the rights of poor rural workers. This is the first time that the Pax Christi Peace Prize has been awarded to people or groups in Mexico. And this is a cause for pride and joy as we congratulate ZODEVITE and all its members. Over the years, we have honored many groups and individuals for their significant contributions to peace. In choosing ZODEVITE as the recipients of this important anniversary, we recognize and affirm the extraordinary manner in which ZODEVITE lives out both their commitment to non-violent resistance and their efforts to care for creation. These 2 themes, non-violence and care for creation, are of the utmost importance to our members throughout our international network. The linking of these 2 priorities in the work of ZODEVITE inspired us to choose them as the 2017 Pax Christi International Peace Prize laureates. In the press release that accompanied the announcement of ZODEVITE's recognition, I think our Secretary General Greet van Haaskort stated it best. It is deeply important that we expand our understanding about the many applications and expressions of non-violence. The efforts of ZODEVITE to resist the exploitation of the land and to promote the dignity of the people of Chiapas serve as an excellent model of active non-violence. We at Pax Christi International truly hope that this prize will give ZODEVITE renewed courage and support in their important work. We also want, through our advocacy and support, to bring the attention of the international community to this issue, so that the governments of the world can advocate with the government in Mexico and elsewhere to actively respond to the issues which ZODEVITE has raised and listen to the analysis and the challenges which ZODEVITE brings into the dialogue for the future. In this regard, the members of ZODEVITE were pleased and encouraged by their meetings in Brussels with officials from the European Union. It is hoped that governments and the media will keep the focus on the issues and questions which ZODEVITE has brought center stage and for which they are receiving the Peace Prize this evening. What is so unique about ZODEVITE is that the cultural traditions of the activists in ZODEVITE inspire what they actually do in practice. And it is hoped that more and more companies will listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, so that climate change and everything else which threatens Mother Earth and people will be dealt with in a sustained way to give hope to future generations and our planet. We are grateful tonight also to the Cardinal Bernardus Alfring Peace Fund, which funds the Pax Christi International Peace Prize. With their support, we recognize and honor contemporary individuals and organizations who make a stand for peace, justice, and non-violence in different parts of the world. Let me close with a short quote from another prophet of the Latin American Catholic Church, Dom Helder Câmara of the Diocese of Recife in Brazil. It's simple, but to the point. Without justice and love, peace will always be an illusion. And that is why it has happened that peace agreements and political compromises to achieve an end to violence do not always bring justice to the victims and the poor. It is because of the justice and love at the heart of ZODEVITE's witness that we hold out hope for the promise of peace. The support and solidarity of Pax Christi, our international movement for peace, will be with you, Mikaas, as you continue your vital work with all your members for a just and sustainable peace. My dear people, my dear friends, thank you for being here. Please join me and us in honoring ZODEVITE as the recipients of the 2017 Pax Christi International Peace Prize. Thank you.